That's what you do. You buy these players that cost me and make a difference in it. But we never do that.
Never complains, gets up, gets on, with a smile on his face.
You just want him to sit in your chair and go, hip hip hooray, to the Western press and the Western narrative, regurgitating the same old, every single day, without the truth. If you haven't seen it before, please watch the first series, the first 2 episodes, the second series.
We are on the site of the castle,
and it was the first time the Beatles had really stopped being semi-professional almost.
Look at that.
Absolutely fascinating.
So many times, anyway, here I am. Thank you very much for joining Anthony and Michelle tonight. And me echoes. Or as they used to say, and me ears lowered. So tonight is going to be about some remarkable people from Liverpool. Not from Liverpool, all of them, to be honest. People who came to Liverpool as well. And what did they do? So we've just got an array of random people who will talk about, has to be talked about, to be honest. Really. And proper Scousers as well, who were born and bred here. Excuse me. And Anthony, there's some portraits when he did that remarkable exhibition of, he was commissioned to do it. 100 Liverpool heads thinking as one. And there are some portraits of people, and I'm going to ask him why these, I haven't seen them yet. I'm always late. Just come on. To be honest, my sleep pattern's been absolutely dreadful. And I can't sleep. And then when I do fall asleep, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. And anyway, it happened to me this morning again, and it gets up and I'm just moseying around. And then this afternoon, it's about, I don't even know what time, I think it was 3 o'clock. I said, I'll just go and lie down, because it was really, my body's just gone, just so tired. And went to bed, and I was just lying on the top of the bed, and bang, don't know what time I fell asleep, and I woke up at 6:15. That's my sleep pattern. It's shocking. It really is. So I feel sorry for myself. So that means that I won't sleep again tonight. I just can't sleep. Insomnia, as they say. There's a good film there called Insomnia with Al Pacino and Robin Williams. Crack film. You never look at it, get it up and look at it. I'll mention it tomorrow. And let's see who's with us. Hi, Frank and friends. Lovely Myra. All the way, this girl's all the way from South Africa. She joins us. She's one of those girls who, she's got the same outlook as myself on certain things, which is good to know. There's a few of us. And Mara carries on, she says, is history a perception, truth view from the lens of propaganda? It depends. That's a cracking question, that. Is it? It depends on who's behind the lens and what they take, if you know what I mean. I'll give you an example. I always remember a BBC reporter, Jeremy Bowen, and he was caught out. You see him, he's in Ukraine, and you see him behind like a little mound of earth. And he's got, he's lying there, he's got his helmet on, press him. And he's got his mic, and he's saying, I'm here. He said, it's dreadful. He said, what's going on? He said, the fire, he said, the firing, he says, has ceased now. He said, but people, the way they are, and he's going on, how bad it was. And honestly, and obviously it was cut, but someone got it, and got the actual piece of footage and put it on. And you see a woman, she just comes from behind the mound where he's shopping. And she just looks at him and says, what are you doing? There was nothing going on. There was absolutely nothing going on. Whether he was in Ukraine or what, I don't know. It could have been a little mound of earth anyway. It was shocking. And that's, is that propaganda? Of course it is. Is that from behind the lines? The lens? So, yeah, of course it is. So this is, it depends on how you view it. But I try to seek the truth. Always have done. I think it's what I've done for years. When I was at university, that's what you had to do. You had to break away the layers of whatever. I remember reading something I had to do on Elizabeth I, and I was shocked. The propaganda about Elizabeth I. I'll do her one day, properly. Elizabeth I. Don't forget, the propaganda was she married the country. People were saying, why didn't she marry? She married the country. Well, I've got an answer for that. Why she married the country and not a man. Why didn't she get married and carry on? As they say, she was a childbearing woman, supposedly. So why didn't she marry to carry on the lineage of the new religion, which was Protestantism? Why didn't she marry to do that? Very precarious at the time. Then, why did she have? She signed the death warrant of Mary, Queen of Scots, who was Catholic. Why did she do that? It's very intriguing, all about Elizabeth I. So I'll do her one day. And I mean in full. See what you've done there, Myra, before we start. As I said, that's an incredible question. Is history a perception, truth, view from the lens of public? Crack of that. Carries on. It's time to embrace history depicts where Asian people who inhabited what is now eastern and northern eastern Scotland during the before then, before the Middle Ages, to be honest. You know, you're talking before the Romans got there as well. When the Romans, see, before Claudius, the Claudian invasion of 1843, 42, 43, what you've got to think of is who was there. Well, you had ancient tribes, and like 90 years before, you had Julius Caesar who went over, and his cavalry was swept away. His cavalry was just swept away because he went over to invade. And when he seen his cavalry swept away, and when he seen the ancient Britons, he went, listen, I've already come for trade. So he started trading. Very lucky with these ancient Britons. So he made up what you call client kingdoms. Client kingdoms, and one of the client kingdoms were the Iceni, led by a big chieftain named Prasutagus. And Prasutagus was the husband of Boudicca. So there's loads to it. There's loads. But when he got back to Rome, he said there's loads of dissidents over there, Roman dissidents. What he meant by that was there was people from Germanica, Germany. There was people from Gaul, which is France, as you know, the Span. So there's, people from Spain. So that's when the Romans were conquering these places, going in. To be honest, what they were doing, really, the Romans, they were building. They were actually building. They were educating people. They were giving them roads. They were giving them temples. They were giving them places of learning. It was incredible what they did. Then, as I said, he came over to Caesar. He came over to Britannicus, crossed Oceanus Britannicus, which is the English Channel. And when he got back to Rome, he said there's loads of dissidents, because lots of dissidents from the likes of Germany, France, Spain, they gathered and they said, oh, there's enough of these, they were always rebelling against the Romans. And where was the best place to go to get away from the Romans was Britain. And this is why you have lots of different areas, different tribes, named tribes. The likes of the Iceni, the likes of the Trinovantes, and all these different types of leaders. The Brigantes were one of the biggest tribes, going from the lowlands of Scotland right down to where the Midlands is now, like Birmingham. They were the biggest tribe, the Brigantes, and it was led by a woman named Queen Cartamandua, and her husband, Minucius, he hated the Romans. And she said, no, they're all right, let's trade with them. They're bringing lots of stuff which we can use. She was far better than Boudicca, let me tell you. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'll go on and on. And she said, it seems that the dark entity on which destroys our roots of culture, hence flood people, do not hang on. Do you not that embrace it? No, there's lots of people who don't embrace the culture. And that goes on today, to be honest, in this country. So you're right there. But enforce their own culture. We have the same here. Spot on, and it's what's going on today. Well, Edwards let on to mine. Hi, Frank, and the what's that? The ex-cat. Hope you're doing well. Just watched your Heroes and Villains podcast, The Black Widows. We're very gruesome people, very enjoyable. I'll be doing that lot tonight. Very enjoyable podcast. Learned a lot. Thank you. No problem, Simon. No, no problem whatsoever. Glad you enjoyed it. A hero, Bessie Braddock, all my life. I have been an agitator against the conditions in which my class has been compelled to live, and I shall continue to agitate with every means and power I am. Well, stay with me because I'm sure I've got Bessie. Now look, this is the last one I'm doing. I've got to bring Anthony in. I've got to talk about these wonderful people. Right, so Simon says, Franco, does your father know Douglas Dougie Pomfret? Yeah, he knew. Yeah, he was a fan. Yeah, well done. Founder member of the Special Boat Unit. Pomfret was a champion amateur boxer who earmarked from Turkey. Yeah, you're right. Very well done. Yeah. Look, I'm just say hello to people. I'm sorry. Lynn Ellis, hiya Lynn. Hope you're well. I hope you're well, Lynn. The lovely Toscana. Hi Franco and everyone. Hope you're all well. Yep. George said, good evening, Frank, Anthony, and chat. Hope everyone. Johan. Wonderful Johan as well. Now, George comes from Belfast. I want you to stay tuned because something's coming up. George. Good evening, Frank and legends and chat. Frank, I watched the film you mentioned on Saturday, The Man from Air. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. Don't say too much about it. You know, other people might watch. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Good evening, Frank and Anthony. Hope you're both well, says. Oh, the bear. Yeah. There's the bear with us. Edward's insomnia as well, but I try, honestly. I've got bags and everything comes to my eyes. Never used to have them things. Be alright, I was going on holiday with the bags. George, try half a bottle of Bushmills whiskey. My old dad always had a few before bedtime, and he got some. Did he? Bushmills. Well, the great Anthony, he knows about Scotch. He let me know about Bushmills and everything else. Do you know what, Bear? Honestly, my daughter said it, but you know what daughters are like. Yeah, I'll get you some magnesium, Dad. So wait. Hi, Frank. Says Ted. Hi, Ted. Hopefully. Oh, she says hi, everyone. The black and white. I'm sorry about. Listen, I'll have to really go on and bring my wonderful friend on. Good evening. Hope all of you are well, says the black and white boy. Thank you, black and white boy. Right. I've got to, you know, I will go on to your comments a bit later on. So let's bring on my wonderful friend, Mr. Anthony Brown. who's going to come over and see me at some time. By the way, people, I'm going to bring Anthony on right now. And I'm going to ask him, whose birthday is it today? Evening, Anthony.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, all. And George totally agreed. Bushmills is beautiful.
Is it? Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
The first comments out of Anthony. The Bushmills is beautiful.
Well, you know what? I am blessed to come from the origins of Ireland and Scotland, and both of them make the most magnificent whiskies. Everyone else is second place to them.
But the next time I go shopping, I'll get myself a little quart bottle or half, but I don't know. I will get one, and take a little drop before I go to bed. I'm terrified of taking any alcohol simply because I'm taking that many tablets.
I know. I'm the same. But the idea is you take one shot, and if you can walk to the kitchen and back, then you're all right for another one. The other thing is, you could have a couple, and it might start you singing and dancing. But I tell you what, after 4 or 5 hours of singing and dancing, you will sleep.
God, bloody, I can't even walk anymore. Well, anyway, shall we get started on this wonderful thing? Now, listen, people, if you want to have a look at this great man's work, and it is great. Now, I haven't a clue who he's got up, honest to God, I haven't.
No, I haven't.
I've seen a couple, but
I know what I sent through to Jace, but yes. And happy birthday, Jason, by the way.
That's right.
21, isn't he? 22?
Yeah, 21 again.
Yeah. Does that mean we've got to pay him a proper wage now? No, I don't know what Jason's put up, which is the wonderful thing about Jason, because like you, he can magic stuff, and this wonderful tapestry of a program comes together. So I sent him a load of stuff and said, I don't know if it's too much or whatever. And he sent me a note back this morning to say he's chosen a chunk, and then there's to be another chunk next week or the week after or whatever suits yourself.
Okay.
I don't know what's coming up.
Okay. Well, we get started, and don't forget you can find Anthony Brown Art and just search Facebook, Instagram, or Google for Anthony Brown Artist, and you'll be able to see his work. So let's get started, eh?
Go, boss.
And with this, there's one here. George Melly.
George. Well, he's one of our characters of the city, isn't he? But also it's like far more than that. He's a hero to the city. So we talked roughly about characters and those that gifted the city monetary, or I like to think that there are so many Scousers or honorary Scousers that gift their talent and their work to the city, and we are the better for them doing their thing, and it's like George Melly did both with his money and his family, and going back to his, I think it was his grandfather, Charles Pierre Melly, who again, as you've said many times, is a wonderful, wonderful person, wonderful character. And was he one of the first Liverpoolians to fly a plane?
No, that was, I think it must have been his son, but what he was, what he did do, Charles Melly, he went. He was in the city one day. Just came into the city. He was walking around, and he seen people. You're talking like the mid 1840s here, and he was looking around, and he said, "This is wrong. This is wrong," because what the people were doing, they were kneeling down, drinking from like pools of water, rainwater. That's what they in the road, in the street, in anywhere, wherever they seen water, they knelt down, started drinking it, because there was no flowing water, fresh water for any of them. The only fresh drink that you could have, believe it or not, at the time, was beer.
Yeah.
Beer was obviously they had to use water to make beer, and that was the only time that you could drink something really.
Yeah.
So what he did, Charles Melly, he put up all these little fountains in and around the city, so that ordinary people, instead of drinking from pools of water, some of them was stagnant as well.
Yeah.
He put them up, and people could just drink. And you drew one. You drew one, which was down by where we used to.
I did.
That was our catchment area where we were born.
Yeah.
Scotland Road way.
So I heard about that tap from my mum.
Yeah.
Years ago, because it was a landmark in the area. People knew it was there. It was right attached to the railway wall, wasn't it?
That's right. Still there.
A brick wall. Yeah, it is. It is. And I remember my mum saying when they got there and they touched that, not far from home. So it was kind of a joy for me when I 1999 or 2000, when Laney and I clocked it was there. So we parked up. I went and
you drew it.
Drew it.
Which I love the picture. It's a fantastic.
You know what, Frank? That picture, simple as it was, has honestly brought me more friends.
Really?
Friends, yeah.
Wow.
Describe people from the area: Bishop Tom, dear Mike Kelly, Ron Formby, Linda McDermott. All of these people knew it. I drew it and put it up in somebody else's exhibition, just as I was asked to put something up, and they all came to our little humble studio at the time. Said, "I know where that is. I know it." And then everyone had a story attached to it. You know.
Well, funny enough, it was only the other day, and I was talking to Francine and whatever, and I said about that particular little wall fountain.
Yeah.
And I said, what you did, the nail right on the head when you said it was sort of a landmark, because we used to play out. It was very built up and whatever. And Jason was it. I can't imagine, unfortunately. Come on. About that. Would you believe it? There it is. There it is.
That's it.
Look, that's what you do. It's an unbelievable. But as I said about Francine, I said, we were little kids and it was very built up, and we used to get lost. And that was our landmark. We knew where we were.
Yeah.
We knew where we were and just went to the direct line, to get home. As a little mad kids playing out, when you could play out at the time, if you know them. Today you can't, unfortunately, the way society is.
Just over the road from there, weren't you, Frank? From that landmark, yeah. Well,
that's where
things have changed now, obviously, with the university buildings and stuff. But
yes,
1857.
Yeah. I might show it on the map later on where it is.
Yeah.
Get the map up later on.
And as you said, there was no proper water in 1857 for us.
No, there wasn't. We were going in it was stagnant water that was lying in pools on the ground, and people were actually drinking from.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Wow.
Horrible.
Horrible.
Really horrible.
Well, going back to George, the picture that was shown up with his picture then is unfinished, because I kind of stopped it when he passed, and I ran out of steam for it, because I know we've talked about, you kindly have talked about the 100 heads. George was to be part of that.
Yeah.
And I wrote to him and asked him, would he be willing to be part of the show? And he sent a lovely email back.
Yeah, I've seen it. He showed me.
Well,
incredible. And that's when he was very ill at the time.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
we've run out of long time, but you saw from the message how much Liverpool meant to him.
Oh yeah, especially the Park Palmos, which is absolutely beautiful today, and he saved it.
Breathtaking.
He saved it, the man.
Yeah.
And yeah, you do have. Now I want you to talk about this fellow, particularly, and why him.
Well, we were talking about philanthropists, and last week you quite rightly mentioned some leading names which we all kind of grew up with and benefited from their work. This particular wonderful gentleman is Bishop Thomas Williams, and was at one time, well, certainly at the time I did that drawing of the tap, Tom was the parish priest of St. Anthony's Church, which is one of the most historic churches in Liverpool.
Certainly, yeah.
Right in the middle of our Ellis Island.
Yes.
Okay to say that? And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because people actually quote me, because I wrote about it, you see. I wrote about the migrants coming from Liverpool from Europe into Liverpool to get over to the States. And I wrote a paper. I had to write a paper, and I said, Liverpool became the Ellis Island of Europe.
Yeah.
So yes, by all means, say the Ellis Island.
And we in our family grew up in and around it, and just slightly off of it when the council moved a lot of people out. But it's quite an air of pride I get when you say that now.
Yeah.
We come from that background. Well, Tom comes from that background as well, Tom on the island side. And so he was parish priest at St. Anthony's, and I met him as a fluke one day. That drawing brought Linda McDermott, the Radio Merseyside presenter, in to our studio because she'd seen it. She lived in Lambkin Lane, always brought up round the corner.
Yes, yeah. She's an old girl, yeah.
So what happens to the beach? She said, have you met Father Tom? And I said, no. I said, you've got to meet Father Tom. Right, come on. And we went to St. Anthony's at the time when Tom was interviewing and being interviewed by various students at the church, and he was downstairs in the crypt. And I know you've been down there, and you've been down there in the early days before they've revamped it. And all it was, if you remember, was one light bulb that worked in this long tunnel.
Yeah.
It was beautifully eerie, and Tom was there, and he involved Lainey and I in what he was talking, and he told us some wonderful stories, and it was like I'd known him all my life, and he has been a big part of our life since 25 years, whatever. And he is the expression is son and daughter of the city. He is a true son of the city. And it's in his heart to introduce everyone and make everyone at peace or at ease, whether it be with religion or football, because he's a fanatical football fan, but he's on the opposite end of the terrace to yourself. He's a fierce blue.
Yeah.
And
that's what I don't like about him. That's honestly, that's how I met him, how you met him. I had my students, and I said, look, dude, I was doing about the Irish.
Yeah.
And as you know, they came from the area of St. Anthony's. They all settled there. And I said, come on, I said, we're going to this church. I said, it's an incredible church. So I went into St. Anthony's, and I always forget this fella's name. He was the oldest altar boy in the world. And I said, I said, do you mind if these come in? He said, no. I said, is there any way I can get into the crypt? He said, he said, you've got to ask for it. This was before he became the bishop. He said, you've got to ask Father Tom, I said, is he about? And he said, no, unfortunately. And with that, Father Tom comes in. And now I didn't know. I never had a clue this man was. And I seen the priest, and I went over I walked over to him to say, excuse me, are you Father Tom? And ask him if I could go into the crypt. And as I was walking over to him, he said, are you Frank Carlyle? I went, yeah. He said, how are you? Shook my hand. And he said, what are you doing here? I said about the Irish. I said about St. Anthony's. And I said, do you mind? I said, I'd love to go into the crypt. I said, because I've told my students who are standing well back, while I was having this conversation. And he said, certainly. Because I was telling him about the crypt.
Yeah.
He said, certainly. And that's the first time I ever went into the crypt, and it was through Father Tom. And the last time I seen him, I gave a talk about the statue, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, the statue that was found here in Liverpool. There was only 5 made in Paris.
Yeah.
5. There's only 3 survivors. 1 in the Notre Dame, 1 in the Vatican, and also 1 here in Liverpool, because the French nuns brought it over to Liverpool when they opened a nunnery. And so anyway, I said I had to give a talk about it and whatever. And Father Tom was there, Bishop Tom was there, one of the priests, and he went, "You're late again." And I went, "Yeah." I was late to give this talk, and that was the last time I've seen the bishop.
You know what?
He's a big friend of Joe McGann's, You know the actor?
Yeah.
Joe McGann, because I had lunch with Joe.
Yeah.
And I said, "Where are you staying?" I said, "You can't be staying." I think it was his mother's birthday. And I said, "Oh, you lads can be staying in the one house." He said, "No." He said, "I'm staying with Bishop Tom. He's put me up."
Did you? Yeah. Tom has been a big part of the McGann's life since they were kids. That's just the way of him. He's just, oh man, you've heard of a heart as big as Liverpool. That's this gentleman. He is absolutely profound. He's
Yes,
just, he's just
yes.
wonderful. And
It's surprising, isn't it, really, what people think and what people do. And I want to talk about this fellow before I go on to the comments. And that's Dr. Duncan.
yes,
Dr. Duncan, people have to understand that in 1846, Liverpool was in a terrible state. Liverpool was in an awful state of, how can I put this? Cholera, typhoid, dysentery, scarlet fever, kids. The infant mortality rate was so low. If, there was children being born, I think 1 out of 2 were dying. 1 out of 2. So it was in a terrible state. And the Liverpool, at the time, authorities said, we've got to do something about this. This is dreadful. Because Liverpool was bustling. You had sailors from all over the world coming here. You had everything. And, some sailors had diseases as well. So it was spreading. So what they did, the authorities, they got hold of Duncan, Dr. Duncan, and they said, listen, we're going to make you the head officer of health. Now, and nowhere in the world had that. And it was down to him to sort out all this particular diseases.
Yeah.
And he hired a lad by the name of James Newland, who was an engineer. Now, the sewage system, which had been going on for years, was just rectangle. It was just straight. That's the way it was, the sewage system. So Newland went down into the sewage and he got bricklayers in and he rounded off like this, the sewage system, he rounded it off with bricks. And any sort of deposit, and put it on a slant, so any sort of deposit that came there was washed away. So this is what the Duncans did. Absolutely incredible people. Thomas Duncan, the engineer, he built the reservoir up in Park Road there, High Park Street. So he has one there, he has one there, a reservoir at the top of Liverpool.
Yeah.
And the other one here was with all the, it's still there, both the things are still there to cleanse Liverpool sewage. It's still, them buildings are still there. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's Dr. Duncan.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
him.
What a genius. What a
Oh,
man.
yeah, absolutely. Now, this one here, Mary Bamber.
Yeah.
Mary Bamber is one of the greatest of all people. A lovely, lovely person. And you see her, you see that wonderful statue of her. And she was a suffrage. And she wanted the emancipation of women. But she didn't only want the emancipation of women during the 1911 general strike here in Liverpool. She went around with her 12-year-old daughter, giving out bread and soup. She made soup in her own home. She brought it down to St. George's Old Plateau. And she was giving out soup to the people because the people were actually starving. There was with them not working, there was no money, there was no income coming into the homes. And people were struggling. They were really starving. and she was given out bread and soup along with their wonderful 12 years of age daughter, same age as my granddaughter today. And she was going around, this little girl, this young girl, 12 years of age, giving out bread and soup to the people who really needed it to sustain themselves during the 1911 general strike. And that was Mary Bamber, a wonderful, wonderful lady, a suffrage, who wanted, as I said, the emancipation of women, give them the vote. See what I mean? Don't leave us in the second-class citizens. They always have been, unfortunately, the women at that particular time. And there's her daughter, Bessie Braddock,
The great Bessie Braddock.
the great Bessie Braddock. The great Bessie Braddock. And the point is about Bessie Braddock is that resonated with her for the rest of her life. These workers in 1911 who were on strike, and like obviously through her mother, through Mary Bamber, that's how she grew up.
Yeah.
You know, fighting for social equality for the working class people. And she, as you can see in the backdrop there, you know, bombed out places, slums, and she wanted to get rid of all the slums around Liverpool, especially in her constituency, which was down the south end. But it was everywhere. She used to come around, all the kids following her. Like, I even followed her, like as a little lad, singing "Vote, vote, vote for Bessie Braddock. She is a woman and a man." Honestly, that's never forget that. You know, as kids walking around the streets, you know what I mean.
Oh.
Then we all got lost, and then we looked at
Oh.
you know, we looked at that your wonderful piece of.
Well,
If we can get it up, then we once we seen that, we could go home then. After getting lost walking around with Bessie Braddock. Absolutely amazing, really.
she,
You know, so this lady is one of the greatest of all.
I
You know,
in me mum and dad's household, but the bigger household, you know, because everything revolves around nan and granddad's, you know, and everyone's there. And Bessie was talked about with so much love and respect by everyone.
yeah.
No half measures. She just was
Well,
nice.
she was a champion, wasn't she, of the working classes? That's what it was all about.
Yeah.
A champion of the working. And
the first I remember in my life, anyway. Yeah.
I'll tell you who hated her. I'll tell you who despised her. Winston Churchill.
I'm not too keen on this, but yeah. You tell him.
The thing is, you see, Churchill, people say that he was a great man. He wasn't so great. He wasn't so great, the man. Throughout his life, he was a terrible racist. He was a terrible misogynist. He was just a horrible man. And he was always drunk, and people don't think about that. And even Bessie Braddock said to him one day in the dispatch box, she said, "Why are you always drunk? That the country's in a crisis, and you sit there smoking your cigar, and you're always drunk." And he turned around and said, "My dear lady, He said, whether I'm drunk or not, I'd rather be drunk and getting up every morning with your face looking in a mirror. I'd rather be a drunkard. That's what he said to her. You know, he really has a go at it. And that's what he said.
Yeah. You can just see all the Etonians, seals. Yeah. The two worlds, and they don't even collide, and they don't even meet in the middle. They didn't then, and they don't now. These people don't know what it's like not to have food in the house,
No.
or not to have heat, or not to have a job.
No.
Because we are spoon-fed from the second they are born on the very finest silverware. It's absolutely insane that
Of course it is. Of
they
course it is.
control the country for everyone else.
See, you know, people say fighting them on the beaches and whatever, which is great, you know, he did so a great war theme. He really did. And it resonates today, actually. Because after the war, he said to R.E.S. Truman, he said, let's carry on to Russia and let's wipe them out. So, you know, we've always hated Russia, always, this country, always hated Russia, you know, Russophobia, always has been, you know, through the elite. And he said, let's carry on and decimate Russia. And Truman said, no, I've had enough of this. I've had enough of war. He said, I'm wide out. Because he wanted to get to Berlin first. Churchill, he wanted to get to Berlin first. That's why you have one of the greatest, I'm talking about our soldiers here. Our soldiers are fantastic. And Churchill said to Montgomery, he says, is there any way that we can hurry this up and get to Berlin? And he came out with a plan, him and General Browning, and it was Monty's plan. He said, if we can get to Arnhem, you know, Holland, he says, and cross the bridge, he says, we're more or less there. We're more or less there. He said, well, let's do it then. Do it. So we said, okay. And the bridge at Arnhem, I shouldn't say this, like, but I'm going to say it nevertheless. Arnhem, I blame the Americans for it, because we were 3 kilometers, that's all, from the bridge. There was, but we were led by the Americans. And General Horrocks said, come on, let's get through now. Let's go. And there was a message to say, turn back, don't do it. And that was from Patton. That was from General Patton to Eisenhower. So we stopped and we were defeated at Arnhem. If we would have got through, if we would have got right to Arnhem, we would have defeated the Germans at Arnhem, no question. No question. And then just gone straight through to Berlin. You know, it would have been hard getting through to Berlin, because people have to bring to mind that it was between 80 to 85%. We were fighting the German army. 80 to 85% of the German army were fighting the Allies, if you know what I mean. The other 20 to 15%, absolutely. The other, we were only fighting like 20 to 15% of the might of the German army. The other 80 to 85% were fighting the Russians, the Soviets. That's how mighty the. I know it's a little complicated, but without the Soviets, and they got there first. They got there first. But Arnold, unfortunately, was a failure. But I blame, as I said, the Americans for stopping it. The orders to stop. Oryx went mad. Colonel Frost, who was older than the bridge, great man, Colonel Frost. He was old and he was saying, where are they? Where are they? And yet, Horrocks' men, and I forget the general's name, I forget his name, the American general, who said, come on, let's go. They could hear the gunfire, they could even see the plumes of smoke from 3 kilometers away. And he said, no, we've got orders to go back. He said, why? Horrocks was saying, why? There they are there. Because you've got to obey your orders. Horrocks went mad. General Horrocks. He wanted to go on. But he had to obey the orders. He had to. Or, he could have easily have become court-martialed himself, a general. In a war situation. A war situation. So he just relented. Listen, I'm going to take a quick break, and I hope Jason's there. I want to talk about, before we go, about this man in the second half. One of the greatest men ever.
This is an amazing Liverpool unequalled. Let me take you inside. This is a beautiful building, and it's the home of the Hungarian consul here in Rodney Street. Remember when we were in the medical institution and talking about Thurston Holland? Well, it was here that he actually lived, and he was involved in a great Liverpool unequalled. Take a look at this. Now, is this a doorbell? Is it a bell to call the servants? But what kind of an apparatus is this? Well, in fact, it was the very first X-ray in the world. Well, we've seen the switch for the X-ray, but where's the machine itself? Is it upstairs? Is it downstairs? Is it in the next room? No, unfortunately, the machine's long gone. However, the switch remains, and it's the great legacy left here by Thurston Holland to give the world the very first X-ray. It's a great, great Liverpool unequalled. You never know what's behind closed doors. I'm on my way to see a lovely, lovely lady. John Lennon. Never heard of him. We are in Stanley Street, Liverpool, and just around the corner is Matthew Street, and I don't think you need me to tell you about what happened there. However, let me introduce you to this lovely daughter of Liverpool, Eleanor Rigby. Ellen has been here since 1982 as a thank you to Liverpool for the Beatles. What makes it special is it's been made and donated to the city by a man who has had his fair share of fame for 6 decades. Tommy Steele. Who was Eleanor Rigby? Well, she was the name on a grave in St. Peter's Churchyard in Wooton, where John and Paul met. However, the song isn't the story of her life. Paul was just fascinated with the name and built the story around that. Incidentally, the song started out as a Daisy Hawkins. Daisy Hawkins. Hasn't got the same ring to it, has it? Eleanor's a lovely piece of work and is very much loved by the people of Liverpool and many tourists alike. Oh, you're never gonna believe this, because inside the statue is a lovely touch. Tommy placed a 4-leaf clover for nature, a page of the Bible for spiritual matters, a football sock for sport, not sure if it's a blue or a red one, a dandy and beano for humour, and 4 sonnets representing romance. And you thought Tommy Steele was just a singer. Not only is the statue dedicated to the people of Liverpool, it's also for all the lonely people. And if you ever are feeling a little lonely, come over and sit down and share your thoughts. A worry shared is a worry halved. Isn't it, girl? We're in Harrington Street, the other side of Matthew Street, and the Liverpool architect, David Backhouse, had put a nice little twist of humour on his building, Cavern Walks. Have a look at it. What's that all about? A big gorilla putting lipstick on. Even the seagulls are getting jealous of it. It just goes to show, even monkeys take a pride in their appearance here in Liverpool.
Oh, I don't know what he's putting up. I really don't know what Jason puts up, to be honest. I really don't. There's Anthony back with us. No, I don't know what he's putting up. You know, the likes of those little clip things.
That's brilliant.
It's amazing, isn't it? You know, about the X-ray. It's amazing about the lipstick and the gorilla and Eleanor Rigby. You know, people don't realise that Tommy Steele actually sculpted it and presented it.
Yeah, no.
He says how much, do you know how much he charged?
No.
I'm going to surprise you. He charged, do you ever remember, he made a film called Half a Sixpence?
Yeah.
He charged a threepenny bit.
Wow.
Isn't that great? What a great gesture. Because he used to sail from Liverpool.
Yeah.
As well. You know, when he was a seaman, a young, very young seaman, along with Billy Fiore, who was also a seaman.
Wow.
Incredible, isn't it?
Absolutely, Frank. And to think that it's been such a part of our lives since 82. And then it's only been really the past year or so that it got damaged. And it was like, wow, what would you gain out of damaging something like that? But thankfully, there's such a wave of love about it that it's been repaired.
Yes. And you get vandals everywhere. There's a building in Liverpool, one of the neoclassical, and Cornelius Sherlock designed it. And unfortunately, what you had, I'm going to show, before I go on to this great man, I'll tell you about him. Just bear with me on this, please. I hope I can get it up. I can't get it. Am I on my map? No, I can't get onto my map. Oh, yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Just bear with me on this. You'll just see what I mean, where I'm talking about. Right. Just bear with me on it. Bear with me. Moment. To see, that's the big library. You've got next door, you've got the Walker Gallery, you've got the sessions downstairs, so you've got them all.
Yeah.
Right. Now, where the library goes around, you've got a round dome. He's put a square dome, but you've got a round dome on top of the library. It's one of my favourite neoclassicals, to be honest, because it's a copy of the Pantheon in Rome, the dome, and you've got all the columns going around it. Well, inside those columns, there's a pedestals, and they were full of statues. And students, they were pathetic the way some parts of Liverpool were. You've got CCTV. And when they found the statue smashed up, it was by students, university students, on a drunken rampage. But the CCTV weren't working at the time to catch the culprits.
Yeah.
And that was it, these wonderful, wonderful statues of prominent people of Liverpool smashed up in a drunken rampage by stupid students. I was a student once, and but yeah, anyway, I don't want to get into that. It really is annoying. So annoying. So I want to talk about this fellow. This man is named, is Lieutenant Commander Ian Fraser. Ian Fraser. What you have, you've got a ship. You've got a ship called the Takao, a massive Japanese battleship. And every time it went out, they got signals that these American battleships or whatever was coming through Singapore, the Singapore Straits.
Yeah.
They went out. That went out to Takao and took they took them out. The Takao took the Americans out. And the Americans they just couldn't get through to the Far East. They just couldn't get through. So they asked the British, they said, can you help us? Well, the British were always helping. They said, yeah, okay. We'll help you. And what they did, they got hold of Lieutenant Commander Ian Fraser, a great man. A wonderful man. I was talking to him one day, and I thought, wow, he was at the time, I was talking to him. I'll tell you a little later what I mean. Okay. So anyway, I was talking to him, and he was telling me, I knew about him, about the Tikal. I said, can you tell us, what happened? He said, yeah, of course, yeah. So he was telling me. Now, the Tikal was held up in Singapore. And every time, as I mentioned, it got the signals that the Americans were coming through. That just went out. There's the Tikal there. There's the Tikal. A mighty battleship. And it used to take them out, as I said. So the only way that, could be worked out to get the Tikal itself was to use, as you can see in the little picture there, mini submarines. Mini submarines. So Lieutenant Commander Ian Fraser commanded this mini sub, along with three other able seamen. One of them was a fellow by the name of McGuinness. So McGuinness, and then they went underneath. They went through the harbour. You had to go to the harbour where the Tikal was. Now, in the harbour, you had what you call a boom, and it was a very strong net. A very strong net. So any enemy coming in to try and do damage to the Tikal or any other ship, for that matter, of the Japanese Navy, this boom just went up. And it used to go down when either patrol boats or the likes of the Tikal or any other battleship was going out. The boom went down. It was impossible to get through with the boom up. So what they did, they went in a mini sub. Fraser, McGuinness, and two other lads. They went in this mini sub. And they waited and waited, a telescope, looking, to see if this boom would go down. And they waited for ages. And a patrol boat was coming out, and they seen the boom going down. So as the patrol boat was coming out, they went in. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Then the boom back up.
Yeah.
So they waited until it was a bit safe to get towards the Tikal. And he said, up telescope. So when he put the telescope up, right above them was a bloody rowing boat, with Japanese in. And they were just moseying about, these Japanese, and obviously naval personnel. And they seen a hand, doing that to the water. If you're in a rowboat, you do actually put your hands in the water, don't you, and just splash it. And he said, that's what we see in these hands, like just splashing the water.
God.
He said, and when they went, he said, we made our way then to the Tikal. So we went over to the Tikal. And there's what happened. When they got there, there's the hull of the Tikal, right?
Yeah.
There's the seabed, right? So in between the seabed and the hull of the Tikal, the mini sub went, right? So it was more or less parked between the hull and the seabed, the mini sub. So McGuinness, he had to get out of the mini sub to put the limpet mines on the hull of the ship, of the Tikal. So he gets out, and this is the commander telling me. He said, anyway, we're sitting there waiting, and then McGuinness is putting the limpets on. He said, but they kept falling off. He said, and he had to spar it. And he's trying to bang these limpet mines on the Takao. He said, the rackets out of him. We were like, oh, what's he doing? Especially banging a limpet mine, you know. But anyway, he succeeded. And he finally got into the mini sub. So he tightened up all the thing, made it watertight. And then all of a sudden, the tides went out. So the Takao that was there and the mini sub, and you've got the seabed bed, the Takao went down and it jammed the mini sub to the seabed.
Wow.
And they were gone, they were finished. So what Fraser said, he said, listen, lads, he said, and they had waterproof like bags or whatever, waterproof bags and writing material. He said, I want you to write out your last letter and your will and testament. So he wrote the last letter to the loved ones and the will and testament.
Oh,
and
man.
each one with the name was put into their individual bags, 4 individual bags with their names on, blank, because they thought they were going to die. And they just sat there waiting to die. They couldn't even get out, Ian Fraser said. They couldn't get out if they wanted to surrender. And that was the mission would have been failed, because they would have had to say, you know, well, we're going to blow it up. So they couldn't even get out because it was jammed. Everything was jammed. Not that they, you know, I said, did you think about giving up? He said, oh, no. No. He said it was our mission to try and take it out, to do our best to take this ship out. He said, so we wouldn't give up. He said, we couldn't, that's when I said, you know, why didn't you give up? And he said, even if we wanted to, we couldn't open the hatch because we were jammed. So that's when I said, would you have given up? And he said, oh, no. No, never have given up. The mission would have failed, he said. So anyway, as they were sitting there, a swell came. He said it came from nowhere. A swell, you know, the way like swells happen now and again in the sea and whatever. And it lifted the ship. And they were free to get out. And then, you know, with the swell, when it lifted the Takao. So anyway, they got out. They got out, but they still had to wait again for the boom to go down. They waited for the boom. And again, there was like little rowboats, you know, with the splashing of the water with, you know, these Japanese putting their hands into the water. And he said, I could see them. He said, we had to put the periscope down, you know, obviously. As soon as we see them. They didn't see us, thank God. He said, then there was a patrol boat going out. There was a patrol boat going out and the boom was let down. And we went out. We followed it out and got to safety. We got back to the Allies, and they actually got to Australia. They got there. Did they blow the Takao? Yes. Because as they went and got away, they heard this mighty boom and they took out the Takao.
Wow.
An incredible story. And both Lieutenant Commander Ian Fraser won a Victoria Cross. McGuinness, he won a Victoria Cross as well. And I asked about McGuinness. I said, do you ever see him? He said, no, unfortunately, he died. And he told me something which I was absolutely gobsmacked. I was gobsmacked what he told me. And that was, he said, McGuinness, he said, came from the Republic of Ireland, and he joined the British Army, which was against the rules of the Republicans. And I'm talking about the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. Totally against, had nothing to do with the British. They warned Irish lads, do not join the British Army, or they'll face consequences. But nevertheless, he joined. He joined because he hated what was going on in Germany. So he joined, and he won a Victoria Cross. But it didn't stop there. I'd rather go into detail. Ian Fraser told me that he had to live in anonymity, not an island, not in the Republic as well, but in Yorkshire, England. He went to Yorkshire to live, and he couldn't even go around saying, look what I want. Because of paramilitaries, they would have been after him. And he would have had to face the consequences of those paramilitaries. And that was the sad case of one of the greatest heroes, shall we say, who blew up the Tickow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
McGuinness. It's just one of those things that it's a great story. It's a brave story, full of courage.
Yes.
Especially with them, as Ian Fraser was telling me about McGuinness, he said it was, and he laughed about it later on, because McGuinness, I couldn't get it on, he wouldn't stick on the bow. But whatever happened, everything was okay, and they blew it up. They just disarmed it, shall we say, the mighty Tickow. The mighty Tickow. And the Yanks, they said, oh, thanks, no fanfare, no nothing, no medals of them. Nothing. And they helped.
I read somewhere that the Tickow was the most heavily armed vessel at that time in the world. It was.
Oh yeah.
It was the one. It was like the powerhouse.
Yeah.
The number of guns and the number of gun towers and the number of missiles and things they had on it. So
that's why it was powerful. Yes. Because that's why they were taking the Americans out all the time. America couldn't stop it. It was a powerful ship.
Yeah.
Powerful ship.
Yeah.
Shows you, doesn't it? And that's the story of Lieutenant Commander Ian Fraser.
Absolutely heroic.
Yeah, he's a hero of mine, actually, He's a hero of mine. Now, I want you to, can I just go through a couple of comments, please? I haven't been ignoring them. Unless the Scottish Bear says, I think he's answering as well, Myra, about propaganda. And everything is propaganda, really, unless you have lived it, really. Anyone can spin a narrative. Absolutely. That's a cracking comment about it. It's just spin. Everything is spin. And even Zaz, says, big up, Frank, mate. Hope you're well today. Yes. Yes. Let's go down. And this is a good comment by young black and white, but I take what I'm told about history with an open mind. I think you have to.
Yeah. And compare. It's like reading book. Don't read one book. Read 5, 6, at least.
And George says, Frank, the Romans, when I was talking about the Romans, brought roads, education, trade, security, and colonial subjugation, just like the English did in my country, 800 years of occupation. Absolutely. George, I'll be talking about the Irish in a few weeks' time. I've given lectures about the Irish from 1566 onwards. About Sir Humphrey Gilbert, the half brother of Sir Walter Raleigh, and what he did. He used Ireland as an experiment, a stepping stone to get to America, because the Spanish had already there. They were conquered. They conquered everywhere. And the English wanted to get there. The English. And they were worrying about how to suppress and oppress the native of the country. So they looked around to see where's the best place to do it. This fella named Sir Humphrey Gilbert. And he decided on Ireland. And I'll be doing that in a few weeks' time. I don't know when I'll be doing it, but I will be doing it. And it's horrible. It's horrible. And I'll even quote what a Liverpool scribe at the time, Thomas Churchyard, he went over with them. He was just a scribe. He was a historian, like a journalist, for example, at the time, 1566. And what he wrote, it's a wonder he never brought him up for sedition and executed Thomas Churchyard. What he wrote, but he wrote the truth. And I'll be talking about him and Gilbert's escapade. He went over in order to cause famine. The Bear. Smash them likes for Frank. Thank you, Bear. Thank you. David Lunt. Wow. Even and Frank, hope you're well. Hey, David. Yeah. Simon. My father didn't like Irish whiskies. It was always the wee bird, famous grouse, 7 pints of the black stuff, and 6 shots. Say, Simon. Lee Argent, and answer the Anfield. The Anfield. Good evening, you champions. Tony. Even a Frankie and Anthony. Hiya, Tony.
Even a Tony.
The famous mince pie man. Christopher is with us as well. Hi, Frank and Anthony and everyone. Happy birthday, Jason. How about that?
Ah, nice one, Christopher.
And Johan says to the Anfield, even in Rotter's weights is all done. Be talking about that tomorrow night. And as he says, fingers crossed. I don't know. I'm going to go right down here. I'm sorry, Deb's still with us. This fella's mad at me. Hey, Anfield, if you're still with us, I haven't got that email, I even asked Jason if it went to our description. I've got nothing off you, I'm sorry. I'm awfully sorry. Anfield wants to come down and fix something for me. Ridiculous. And he says, Deb, I'm very well. The missus has fed me, bathed me, clipped my toenails, and I'm all sorts of ready for the boss. It's nuts. I'll just go right down. Teresa Maria Fitzgerald. Hey, Teresa. Even Frank. Teresa. Lovely to see you, honestly, sweetheart. Simon says, William Henry Duncan, MD, the nation's first medical officer of health and pioneer in community medicine. Absolutely. He's the first in the world. First in the world. I've just got to go right down. I'm awfully sorry. Honestly, just let me go right down. The Deb says, love Frank's history docs. Thanks, Deb. Thank you. When I was a lot younger, the vlogs. Is MI6 on my tail? Is it true that the town hall have all tunnels underneath that? I've actually filmed them. Put on one of my DVDs, vlogs. Seen a video that someone got down there inside one of the tunnels, seen someone playing or something on their own, a bit spooky. And they legged it out. But how true is it? I'm not sure. Just have a look. I don't know what DVD. You'll be able to get it up on YouTube, what I've done. I'm actually down there. I don't know what one though. We have put it up on here. Jason's actually found it and put it up on here. One time. Where you see me in the tunnel. The Anfield. Eleanor, like all of Frankie's dates, was a little, shall we say, stiff with her hands. Eleanor Rigby, that is. Right, we're going right down. Brilliant. Frank McGuinness is one and only Belfast. Yeah. Spot on. Sadly, McGuinness was forced to sell his VC when he lost his job. All kinds of anonymous person bought it for him on the proviso he would not sell it again. I don't know what's happened to it today, to be honest.
It's gone to a museum in London. There was a lord who made it his business to a baron, and I've forgotten his surname. I'll have it next time. Made it his business to buy up medals because they were going for big money. Collectors, global, will want to buy them. Well, he made it his business to buy them all and put them, buy as much as he could and put them in a museum, which is attached to the Imperial War Museum in London. So there's a special section for the VCs in London.
And it's so sad. And even Ian had to sell this.
That will
This
be,
is how VCs are treated.
yeah,
And it's just like, the way soldiers are treated now, even today. Some are homeless. Think about it.
yeah. No, I know.
They've been to wars and everything, and they're homeless. I'll just don't get me started on that, please. Simon Franco, other famous notable Irish soldiers: Paddy Mayne, SAS, and Brendan, Finnegan, RAF, Sadly, Paddy still not being awarded the. You've got to be mentioned in dispatches, unfortunately, Simon. You had the likes of Noel Shabazz. He was mentioned 15 times in dispatches. Could have won 15 BCs. But today, I think, not being funny, but you can get a BC like that now. It wasn't like how to win a BC back in the day. And Barry, even if Frank and Anthony, been listening to the stories, that one about the many subs was amazing. Love those stories, mate. Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, me too. Evening, Barry. Yeah, you're quite right. Me too.
I want you to say what you. Simon says, Mr. William Gould, VC, the only other surviving Royal Navy Victoria Cross winner from the Second World War. Incredible. Thank you for that, Simon. And I want to put up this lady. And I want you to tell me why you chose this as one of the Liverpool heads, 100 Liverpool heads thinking as one.
This lady is Dr. Y. McWatt, now retired, an eye specialist. On a personal note, she saved my eye. I'd lost the sight in one eye 30 years ago, and she saved the other one, which made it possible for me to do the work I did, and certainly the 100 heads. But what's beautiful about Y is that she's a wonderful person. And like you've said so many times, she came from China to study in England, like our ancestry came to Liverpool. And in her studies, she qualified as a doctor, did her service well before I saw her. But there's I think if anyone out there, any of our team are diabetic, there's a severe problem that happens with diabetes, and the number of blind people in this country are predominantly diabetes is
related, yeah.
Yeah, it's a premium cause of that. And somewhere in this wonderful picture is when I talked to her about what we were doing with the 100 heads, her loves of her life, she's magnificent, the brain power, the knowledge base she's got. She wanted her family and her rose garden, which she tended as a therapy for coming back from medicine. But somewhere in there, I wangled out of a photograph, because over the Birkenhead side of the
Yeah, I can see the roses there. The roses are very prominent.
yeah, she grew them, and there are children who are now adults and stuff. But the thing that I wanted her to put in is in the 80s, the early 80s, young children and adults were still going blind on a daily basis in this modern world. Um, there was a machine that had been tested in America, a laser machine, which is now used cosmetically. But she was the lobbyist, the doctor who fought the hospital bureaucracy and brought the first machine to here, to Merseyside, and it came to Addo Park Hospital, which was the hospital that our previous uh, hero, Ian, he sadly passed away in, and
Yeah,
shortly after you interviewed him. But
yeah.
why is out there? And she gave a wonderful speech in her quotes about 100 heads, because I'd asked everyone their opinion of Liverpool, what was doing. And she I can't remember word for word about it, but the fact that she came to Liverpool and she was embraced by what she did, and her work put her in touch with so many people who were kind-hearted, back, grateful for what she's doing. I mean, I'm massively one of them.
One of
Yeah, so we talk a lot about honorary Scousers, and there's so many of them that you and I could say, yeah, they definitely are. But why is undoubtedly an honorary Scouser? She stayed
them.
here all her working life.
The point is as well. I'm glad that you brought it up about when I mentioned about the Chinese, because when I'm talking about something different,
Yeah,
I say to people, what have the Chinese done to us? You know, because you're getting the likes of America, even this country, picking a fight with China, picking a fight with them. And
don't
there's
it
you
just
just spoke about a beautiful Chinese lady.
yes,
And you know what? I was down when I gave that talk with Bishop Tom about the
yeah,
Sacred Heart of Jesus, and there was a Chinese gentleman there. And he said, "Hello, Frank." I said, "Hiya." And he said, "Would you come to our community and give a talk about?" He said, "I've heard you many times about, the migrants from China coming in and 18." I said, "Yeah, sure, no problem." He said, "Look," he said, "there's my card." I said, "Great." I said, "I'll be in touch and I will. It'll be an honour to go down and talk about the Chinese and what they did." And honestly, to be honest, I was excited that I was actually asked. So, yeah, definitely do it. I'll be in touch. Lost his bloody card tonight on the day.
oh,
Lost his card. Never had a clue who this gentleman was. Oh,
was he attached to an organisation?
I don't
China?
know. He was just there. He was just there. He
Oh,
came down. He knew that I was giving it. Oh, he got to know. I don't know. And he waited for me. And then he came up to me. He said, "Would you give it?" I said, "I certainly will." Because
that's
the Chinese community over here, people every day say, "We had a great Chinese last night," that's all they ever say. But nothing's ever mentioned about their community.
no,
Nothing
which
at
is
all.
absolutely uh, majestic, wonderful,
Yeah.
warm-hearted, lively.
And
Um,
there's us trying to pick a fight with them. I don't know what's happened. I don't know where I am. Oh, there I am. I don't know what happened there. was Jason's fault that. No, it wasn't.
I used to work on Mill Street. I used to get off the train at Central Station and walk through Chinatown. And there used to be about 4 or 5 shops I used to daily have to go in. It was just like otherworldly for me. The art shops and inks and drawing stuff and everything. I love Chinatown in Liverpool. And I think it's one of our greatest gifts to visitors to the city is Chinatown.
Of course it is. And it's the biggest Chinese arch in the world.
Yeah.
It's bigger than the one in Shanghai.
And
The Chinese arch.
beautiful. Beautiful.
And anyway, I want to talk, the last one for tonight, got loads on here. I couldn't get through them all. I think there were too many. I want to talk about this chap,
Yeah.
David Lewis.
Yeah.
Now, David Lewis, as you mentioned about only Scouser, this fella came up from London. And what you've got is, it's about, how can I say this? It's about philanthropy.
Yeah.
Philanthropy. And the philanthropy of people that have a look around. They have a look around themselves. You know, and they see that the likes of people like ourselves, you know, have got nothing. People at the time, I'm talking about from middle classes upwards, they were going, we have beautiful theatres here, beautiful. And, you know, beautiful clubs. What I mean by clubs, gentlemen clubs. I'm talking the 19th century here. So, you know, they used to go in and, wonderful people going to these wonderful places, even parks. You know, the likes of you and I wouldn't be able to get into a public park. Did you know that?
Yeah.
It was crazy times. And we couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything, couldn't go to theatre, couldn't afford it, or anything like that. And this fella came up and he said, this is terrible, this. And he was even looking at kids running around with big stuff. I hope no one's having a cup of tea, but you know, with scabs on their legs, and you know where they fell over and they cut their legs on broken glass or whatever. How can I say this? And he looked again at, you know, different levels of poverty. And he said, there's nothing for the people. They're just existing. They are just existing. And this man, he decided to open up a little shop, only a little shop at the beginning, so that some poor people could actually go into a shop and buy something if they got an 80 half penny, that is, or even a farthing. And it was incredible what he did. And that little shop became the superstore, Lewis's. But he didn't stop there. He went, these people really need to be looked after, you know, because of diseases and, as I said about kids, you know, falling over, scraping around, gangrene and that setting in, and the legs and the hands. And so he opens up, not one hospital, but 2. He opens up the Royal Northern Hospital That was our end of the city. I even went there as a little mad kid and I got kicked playing football. I had to go there. The likes of the Royal Southern Hospital, he opens up that for the south end of the city. He opened it up and put all his money into it, both hospitals. And there's you had one of the greatest of all surgeons, just like your lovely lady, who went to save lives. And that was Noel Shabazz. He was there as a surgeon, saving lives. I'll be talking about him in a future one. But he never only saved lives, he was saving lives as well, not only in Liverpool, but also on the trenches of the First World War.
Yeah, on the battlefields.
On the battlefields, yeah. And then he opens up, David Lewis, a theatre, the David Lewis Theatre, so poor people like us could go and see some variety. He actually pays artists to go and, to give us some sort of variety. This is he's one of the greatest of all philanthropists of Liverpool. And he became an honorary Scout. A Scout, David Lewis.
Yeah.
An incredible man.
Yeah.
Love him to death, honestly. When you look at these people and what they gave to Liverpool, and he's no exception. David Lewis, he helped everybody. He really did. And that's what you get, you get these. And next week you'll want to talk about, I'm not going to show you, I'll just show you the picture of him. I'm going to talk about him.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about that gentleman. I didn't realise his name was up there. But I'll be talking about him next week. I might talk about him. I'll tell you what, I'll definitely. Would you be willing to come on Thursday?
Yeah.
And we'll carry on with this.
Yeah.
Because I've left out some very important people, like that gentleman, and there's a few more. The likes of David Lewis, the likes of your wonderful surgeon.
I would love to come on, and I would love to hear more about. I mean, I know a little bit about David Lewis from what you said, and I had the good fortune to meet some of his family descendants because the heads went to Lewis's, and I met I think it was his grandson, his great grandson, just before they sold the building. But like you, I love him even more listening to what you say about him. Definitely Thursday I'll be there.
Yeah, because there's quite a few. I'm going to talk about, it's not even on one of the things here. It's not on one of the things. And I will be talking, I'm not going to mention who it is. I'm going to tell Jason to put it up, this particular gentleman. I haven't got it here, so it'll be a surprise. And who else I'll be talking about? It's this fella.
I know him.
So it'll be a sort of, shall we say, surprise package. But the other fella I want to talk about has got nothing to do with him. He's such a wonderful man.
Yeah.
And I'll be getting hold of Jason for a picture of him. And we'll talk about some more. Is that all right with you?
That's all right with me, Frank. I, like you, love people.
I don't want to talk about this fella though.
Well, we're talking about philanthropists, and the first thing comes into your mind is money. But to me, it doesn't. What comes into my mind is someone who shares something with other people that will inspire or enlarge their knowledge base, vocabulary, everything. And you have done that all your life. But certainly in the times that I've known you, 20 years, whatever, you've shared so much, and that's what you continue to do. And that to me is the purest form of philanthropy. It's that gift of knowledge, sharing, interaction.
Thanks very much. You know, um, when you chose me for the 100 Heads, and I was in the company of great people from the sciences, from the world of entertainment, from the world of uh, medicine, everything. And I said, uh, when I went home, I said, I've been chosen by this artist, you know. And she said to me, isn't that a wonderful, like, what was the word she used? It wasn't complimentary or anything. And well, I mean, you know, she never said it's a great compliment or anything. She said, this is a thing that you'll never forget, will it? I said, no. I said, I've never been in such company because he told me what some of these people were. I'm in the company of some of the greatest of all people of Liverpool. That's what I said. Couldn't believe it. Very humbled to be chosen. And that's that. And where the photograph is, you'll see a little photograph of two of my grandchildren. One's a solicitor now, and the other fella's a cage fighter. How different could you get? You know, it's
You know, I believe we've all got something to give. It's just a struggle sometimes because we get ourselves tied into working under the shadow of something else or an employment, but we all have something that is worthy of sharing,
yeah.
and again is the reason, you know.
Well, George said, now, Frank, you probably mentioned this, but Liverpool have the oldest established Chinese community in Europe. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Now, how did they get to Liverpool? You know, George, honestly, how they got to Liverpool, you won't believe. It's like the Italians and the Passaggio. Now, the Italians, some of them actually walked. They got to the English Channel, Dover, and crossed over to get to Liverpool, to get to the States. They kept the money, they kept the fare for the States. And it was known as the Great Grande Passaggio. And they walked. And that was from Italy. You know, because they didn't want to pay fares, especially, you know, boat fares to get to Liverpool or overland by train. They'd
yeah.
rather walk,
Wow.
the Italians. Also, the Chinese. The Chinese walked from China. Some Chinese Lots perished on the way, but at least he got it.
That's the same with the Irish.
Yeah.
Who
Oh, yeah.
Ireland and came
That's when I'll be talking about the Irish, it wasn't just a matter of they really jumped on boats of any kind to get away from the Irish, from Ireland. And when they jumped on the boat, especially in 1847, getting away from the famine, it wasn't a famine, as George Bernard Shaw said. George Bernard Shaw said, how could there be a famine when the country was full of food?
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
And it was full of food.
Yeah.
And they even exported potatoes into England.
Yeah. It was just, again, going back to the very first question by Myra a couple of hours ago, propaganda at its highest. The British, in their absolute majestic reign of propaganda and lies.
Oh, shocking. That's why I keep saying, what's a Russian ever done for us, to us? What have they ever done? They've never invaded here.
No.
And the Iranians have never invaded here. The North Koreans never invaded here.
No.
The Chinese has never invaded here.
Never.
And yet they're the axis of evil by the West. Get carried away again.
Well, it's easy because it's like history will replay itself time again, won't it?
And as Lee Argent says, agreed, Chinatown is awesome, a credit to Liverpool. Thank you for that, Lee. It is.
Cheers, Lee.
Barry Aldridge, he has a dabble with my missus's gran when he was stationed in Liverpool. She had many missuses, mum, Hilda. He left both married, different part. Who are you talking about? He has a dabble with me missus's gran when he was stationed in Liverpool. Who was that? In 1879, he conceived the idea what is claimed to be the world's first Christmas grotto, entitled Christmas Fairyland, David Lewis. Well, you try, hang on, let's just get on to him again. Barry, you talking about David Lewis? Well, I wouldn't know that. That's a crack of that, though, isn't it, what Simon says?
Yeah, that was just one of the most wonderful parts of Christmas was Lewis's windows forever, you know, and our generation's kids. Yeah,
look, even Simon comes out and he says, Lewis also, he headed the local subscription list for the persecuted of Jews of Russia with a donation of £1,000, 5,000, and gave large sums of support of the synagogue. Yeah, he was a Jew. David Lewis, he was a Jew, changed his name, obviously, anglicised his name. And when you look at the likes of David Lewis, he wasn't one of these people. He was just a great philanthropist.
Yeah.
He really was. And the Jews were expelled, actually, in Russia in 1884, and that's what he was doing. That's what he was doing, giving donations and helping them to get out of Russia. That's when the likes of one of the greatest of all Jewish lads came to Liverpool. And he went to St. Francis Xavier's school, albeit he was a little Jewish boy. And he went into, Russian. He sailed from Odessa, the Russian city of Odessa, and that was Russia, right? Ukraine. He said it didn't even exist. And he sailed from Odessa to Liverpool. That's where most Russian Jews sailed from, the port of Odessa.
Yeah.
Got out of the Black Sea. And anyway, he got here with his family. He's only a kid. And he couldn't speak, obviously, he couldn't speak English. He spoke Russian. And he gets here, he goes into St. Francis Xavier's school as a little Jewish boy, because they brought everybody in, no matter who they were. St. Francis. And he learns his language, the English language there. Well, his parents, got a job, because there was a 6-month waiting list to get a ship over, a passenger ship over. I don't mean a big passenger, I'm talking about cheap fares over to the States, to Ellis Island.
Yeah.
And he learns his language. And that young kid, he went to St. Francis Xavier's Church. He learned his English language in the school, St. Francis School. Went on over to America with his family after 6 months. And he became iconic. He was the very first person to speak in a film, the talkies as they call them. You ain't seen nothing yet. And that was Al Jolson.
Yeah. That itself is just, that's like
an amazing story.
A history of Liverpool, really, because we are, we're made up of a million of those stories.
Yeah.
He was absolutely majestic in film, but the number of people we talked about over the years who come here as waifs and strays.
But I'm going to finish. I'll have to. I'm wide awake now.
Yeah.
I'm wide awake. The Anfield. Frankie, I said earlier, I'll get in touch. Come the end of the week, I'll send the email again. Sorry about that. Honestly, Anfield, I haven't received. I've been asking Jason, has anything been sent through? But it'll be great, you did too. Be great. And on that wonderful note, if you want to join Anthony and myself again on Thursday, please do. We'll go through some more wonderful people. As I said,
yeah,
we'll be talking about especially 3. I've put one up there at the beginning, but I didn't know the name came up, so I'll be talking about him. I'll be talking about, remember that other one?
Which one? One that we talked about. I remember that. Yeah, indeed.
Talk about them.
Yeah.
And, so there'll be 3 I'll be talking about, and Anthony's, rest of Anthony's wonderful portrait. I won't be talking about the last one I showed.
But you understand, don't you?
But I'll let you talk about them. It's not fair enough.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
No, thank you. And Simon says, good night, Franco. And thank you for another special week. Thank you, Simon, for joining us. The outfield are
good night.
Toscana. Cara mia, Toscana. Grazie, Franco. And Anthony. Very interesting here. Good night, all. Take care. Says the lovely Toscana.
Oh, lovely. Good night.
George. Good night, Frank and Andy and Chet. And Frank, have a hot whiskey before bed. I've got none in.
I'll email you the picture of one.
I'll piss off. Well, anyway, I'll be here tomorrow night. I'll be talking. I know what I forgot what I'm bloody talking about, but it'll be like football related. Unfortunately, you know, for the Reds, so we'll be chatting about that. You know, about these bloody players. We've signed one. That's it, and one's gone out. It's fulfilling the model of the owners. That is, sell one and buy one, because we're a sell to buy club, and the sell to buy club means that if you get sold, there's some money there to buy a player. And Barry says, "Thanks, Frank. I'll put things in order on Thursday, explaining it properly." Yeah, do that. Thank you. Lee Argent. Myra Page night now. Is she gone as the lovely? And Toscana. Italy are playing Moldova tonight. Just watching us on Italian TV. I might catch some of it. You're watching us on Raiuno. So that's where I used to watch it on. Their TV. Johan, a lovely brother. Good night, Sir Carlyle, Sir Brown. Take care, legends, and chat. He's a lovely lad.
Johan.
And always I want to remind people of the sponsors of the Frank Carlyle Show, which is Gap Painting Services. Please, please, please do not struggle. Get people in. Get Gap Painting Services. If you're an NHS worker, you get a very special discount. Don't struggle. If you're an OAP, I hate saying OAP. If you're an elderly person, don't struggle. Get these people in. You get a special discount. Even if you don't fall into those categories, Gap Painting Services are very, very reasonable. They're a great bunch of lads, fully time served, fully insured, and they're in and out, and they leave your house sparkling and freshly decorated, whatever you want to. And please, don't be struggling trying to paint window frames if you've got ordinary like metal or wooden window frames. Don't struggle, get them in. Don't be falling off ladders. And Lee Argent to the Anfield Road. See you on the next one, lad. And Lee again, bye all, take care now. Thank you.
Lee.
And I just want to say a big thank you to my great friend here, Anthony. We'll both be back on Thursday, talking about some certain things. Also, most importantly, I've got to thank Jason for setting everything up and whatever he does. I can't bloody do it. Anthony can't do it. Unfortunately, the painters are a bit too far away from me. I know they've got a great reputation. Thank you so much, Toscana. Mille grazie, cara mia. Mille grazie. So, I'll see you tomorrow night, whoever's there on tomorrow night. See you then. And we talk about football. On Wednesday, I'll be doing nothing. I'll be relaxing, drinking all this scotch. Or magnesia. One of the two. So, you'll be back with Anthony and myself on Thursday. So thank you so much, people. for keeping us company. Wonderful comments, especially.
Absolutely.
Hope you've enjoyed it. Good night, Anthony. See you Thursday.
Good night, Frank. Good night, all. Thank you.